Before anything else, pause and notice the part of you that wants this to be complicated. Because that part is usually the same part that keeps you running in circles, adding more indicators, more rules, more noise, hoping complexity will finally protect you from the only thing you've been avoiding. The moment where it's just you, your decision, and the consequence. Trading doesn't start when the chart opens. It starts in the 5 seconds after you feel impulse, when you either obey it like a civilian chasing relief, or you let it pass like a hunter who doesn't negotiate with urgency, because the market can't control a man, it can't rush, and most accounts don't get blown by one bad setup. They get bled out by 1,000 tiny acts of impatience that felt justified in the moment. There's a reason you've tried so many approaches and still feel like you're shadowboxing. Because without a clear map of what actually evolves in a trader, you keep fixing the wrong layer. You keep upgrading tools while your identity stays the same. You keep changing entries while your nervous system stays reactive, and the market keeps meeting you at the same weak point. Not because it's personal, but because it's consistent. That's what this is. A reset, not another strategy video, but a clean framework for the 7 principles that make a trader dangerous over time. The kind of principles you'd rebuild from if everything got wiped. Because the hunter doesn't rebuild from hype, he rebuilds from fundamentals. And once you see these clearly, you stop wasting months arguing with yourself in real time. If this opening already feels like it's describing you, comment, "I'm Hunter." The hunter-trader archetype isn't a motivational label, it's an operating system, and it's built on principles so simple they offend the part of you that wants complexity to feel special. But simple doesn't mean easy. It means clean. It means repeatable. It means the kind of structure you could rebuild from nothing if you had to. Because the market doesn't care about your story. It only responds to what you do when it moves. The first principle is identity, because identity is king whether people admit it or not. And the trader who keeps identifying as someone who chases, someone who flinches, someone who needs action, someone who always struggles, will keep producing the behavior that matches that identity, not because they're cursed, but because the mind protects consistency, even when consistency is painful. And the hunter understands this, not as a quote, but as a lived fact, which is why the hunter's language is different even in silence. Because he doesn't narrate himself as a victim of the market. He doesn't wear struggling like a personality. He doesn't romanticize chaos. He holds an internal posture that says, without drama, that his decisions are deliberate, his risk is measured, and his execution is clean, because he knows the market tests character before it rewards performance. And a man who can't hold his frame under pressure doesn't get paid for his potential. The second principle is that hunters trade what is there, not what they wish was there, because the screen is always offering 2 experiences at once, what price is doing and what your mind is doing about it, and most people trade the second one. They trade their imagination, their hope, their fear, their need to be right, and the hunter trades the first one, the present structure, the present alignment, the present conditions, without trying to force a narrative onto a moving chart. Because forcing is the civilian's habit and observation is the hunter's home. The third principle is risk, because the market doesn't destroy you in one day. It destroys you in the days where you forget you're mortal, where you size up because you're emotional, where you size up because you're trying to make it back, where you size up because you've convinced yourself this one is guaranteed, and hunters don't talk about risk like it's a rule. They treat it like breath, like gravity, like something that's always there and never negotiable, because longevity is the real edge, and you can't compound skill if you keep deleting your account. The fourth principle is quality, and this is where most men reveal they were never hunting, they were grazing, taking anything that looks edible, taking mediocre setups because they feel like they should trade, taking B-level conditions because they're bored, taking something that doesn't match the plan and then calling it intuition. And the hunter doesn't do that, not because he's better, but because he has a standard that doesn't change with mood. And he knows consistency doesn't come from taking more trades. It comes from taking the same kind of clean trade again and again until execution becomes automatic, until the body recognizes it before the mind starts debating. And when the real A+ moment arrives, there is no inner argument, there is only the shot. The fifth principle is exits, because the entry is the seduction, but the exit is the marriage. And most traders spend all their energy learning how to get in, and almost none learning how to get out. And then they wonder why their P&L looks like a nervous system. Green then panic, profit then greed, structure then sabotage, because the hunter doesn't enter a trade hoping to figure it out. He enters with an exit already accepted, already mapped, already priced into his emotional expectations, because a man who needs the market to make him feel safe will always move the goalposts when safety is threatened. And that's how winners turn into break-even addicts. The sixth principle is the one most people can't tolerate because it feels like doing nothing. And that principle is that cash is a position, that no trade is still trading, that sitting out's a skill, because the market is not obligated to give you a clean opportunity today. And the hunter doesn't beg for opportunity. He waits for it like it's normal, like it's expected, like it's the cost of doing business, because preservation is not passive, it's strategic. And the men who laugh at not trading are usually the ones donating fees and spreads and emotional decisions to the market while calling it hard work. And the seventh principle is routine, because the market doesn't just test your chart knowledge, it tests your lifestyle, it tests your sleep, your impulsivity, your discipline, your relationship with boredom, your ability to keep promises to yourself, your willingness to show up the same way on a flat day as you do on a volatile day. Because consistency in trading is rarely built inside the trade. It's built outside it in a life that is structured enough that your mind isn't starving for stimulation when you sit down at the screen. And hunters understand routine isn't punishment. It's protection, it's stability, it's the container that holds your edge steady when emotions try to move the walls. Discipline as identity is where it all becomes quiet, because the mature trader doesn't romanticize intensity, he respects repetition, he understands that the most powerful form of control is not forcing a win, it's refusing a bad decision, and boredom starts to feel sacred when you finally understand what it's saving you from, because the market is full of traps that only catch the impatient, and impatience is just discomfort wearing urgency as a costume. So the hunter becomes the kind of man who can watch price move and feel nothing urgent about it, who can miss a trade and not spiral, who can have a red day and not chase, who can have a green day and not inflate, who can sit on his hands and still feel productive because he knows he's protecting the one thing that can't be replaced, his ability to execute cleanly tomorrow. And when you live like that long enough, you stop needing the market to validate you, and that's when your decisions start to sharpen, because the market can't bribe a man who's no longer begging. Silent belonging is the last part, and it isn't a club or a badge. It's just a recognition that not everyone is built to operate this way. Not everyone can tolerate waiting, not everyone can handle routine, not everyone can respect small risk when their ego wants big wins. Not everyone can sit in uncertainty without trying to do something. And once you see the difference between the ones who react and the ones who wait, it's hard to unsee it because it shows up everywhere. In how people talk, how people plan, how people quit, how people cope, how people blame, and how people execute. If this felt like it described the way you've been trying to trade but couldn't quite name, hit like and subscribe if this is the kind of mindset you come back to when the noise gets loud, because some people will understand this instantly and others won't understand it at all. And that's fine, because the market doesn't pay explanations, it pays execution, and execution comes from identity, and identity is built in silence, in repetition, in restraint, in the quiet decision to stop gambling with your own nervous system. And once that decision is made for real, the old way starts to close behind you without drama, and you move forward with less talk, fewer trades, cleaner rules, and a steadier hand. And after that, it's hard to go back to the version of you who needed to be in everything, needed to be right about everything, needed to feel something every day to believe you were progressing. Because the hunter doesn't need constant action to feel alive. He needs alignment. And when alignment appears, he executes. And when it doesn't, he preserves. And that's how accounts survive long enough for skill to compound into something that looks like talent from the outside, but feels like calm inevitability from the inside.